The Nova Scotia RCMP will apologize to the African Nova Scotian community next year for the, quote, harm caused by the historical use of street checks, a policing tactic that targeted black people at a rate 3 times that of white people. Dennis Daley is the commanding officer of the Nova Scotia RCMP with us in studio, and we thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Sir, why now? Why the decision to apologize now?
I do recognize that the apology is long overdue. I returned to the province in late fall last year with a commitment to make an apology to the African Nova Scotian community and those of African descent for the harm caused by street checks. We learned a lot from Dr. Wortley's report, and it is certainly my intention with my steering committee to fulfill that apology, and more importantly, the action plan that follows.
Why does it take 4 years? 4 years after the Wortley report that said that, black men in Nova Scotia are unfairly targeted by street checks, and after, years after the Halifax Regional Police apologized, why does it take so long?
Unfortunately, I don't really have a good answer for that. I've done some inquiries as to why the apology wasn't done, and in my mind, it was a missed opportunity to make right, because we do know that there was overrepresentation in the street check review done by Dr. Wortley. So moving forward, what I can control is how then we move forward. The steering committee, I am so appreciative and I'm so humbled by their willingness to really direct and drive this. They're showing their expertise and their guidance. We've announced the launching of public consultations. We had one this past Monday night. We have another one September 28th in Hammonds Plains. Really, those consultations are an opportunity for me and my senior team to listen and learn. The goal is for those consultations to inform our apology. The steering committee will then craft that apology and to make it meaningful and to make it sustainable. Then we'll work on the subsequent action plan, because I'm told by community, by my steering committee, and what I heard the other night, is that the action plan is the most important piece of this whole journey.
And so what is it that you're hoping to learn by engaging with the community over, I think it's the 14 stops that you're making?
What I'm hoping to learn is certainly their lived experience, their real experience with interactions with police officers, specifically with the RCMP. What I have learned to date from inviting young black males into our steering committee is they do not have positive interactions with police. So it is really my hope that this is an opportunity to work towards rebuilding, the fractured relationship that exists. I do recognize that. The African Nova Scotian community, because I've served here over half my career, I value their impact to the province and their value to the province. So I really want to make this right.
And so how do you go about, I know it's early days, but as you say, you've been with the RCMP for a long time. How do you go about changing that culture inside the organization, the systemic racism that exists within the organization that makes street checks a problem policy to begin with, one that was allowed to flourish for a long time?
You're right, it is a challenge, and I do certainly acknowledge the systemic racism that exists within policing, within every policing department within Canada. The broader justice system, we know that there's overrepresentation of black males within the correction system, so we do recognize that. One thing that keeps me going in my career is that challenge. Working with the steering committee, it's hoped that the action plan will be meaningful. I do have the ability to influence my organization, certainly within Nova Scotia. I'm also hoping to influence nationally too. So a side benefit, of course, is the rebuilding of that relationship, my hope. Subsequent, it's the intention, we need to recruit more African Nova Scotian police officers or civilians that support police. So we are recruiting. We need to reflect our diversity, especially among our senior team. So that's kind of a goal as well. The cultural competency and the training, we've already rolled out a course that we're very proud of here in Nova Scotia with the RCMP, designed by employees, African Nova Scotian employees. We call it the African Canadian Experience. So we've already partnered with some of the Nova Scotia Chiefs of Police to train their employees along with the Department of Justice. And we're hoping to move that into our training academy out in Regina.
I want to ask you about the training, and this was something that was brought up in the MCC report, the Mass Casualty Report as well. You've had a busy tenure in your time here as the commanding officer already, because that's another file that you're really dealing with. That report called on for 100% of frontline staff to receive training in critical incident response. Has that happened? And is someone looking at that training to make sure that is in fact the right training?
Yes, that's a very good question. So we've had a robust review done internally with respect to our critical incident command. We have made some changes which would include, for instance, being leaders in Canada on public alerting. We've made changes to our OCC, our 911 center. We've done things such as putting a resource in what we refer to as an analyst. So when a critical incident call out is, we deploy a package including negotiators, and so part of that package includes an analyst, because we recognized during the mass casualty that there was an awful lot of information coming in, and at times an inability to collate and coordinate and get that information out to where it needed to be. So we're making changes. We continue to make changes. We've supported the inquiry significantly. We have a robust team out of national headquarters responsible for the Mass Casualty Commission. Senior level deputy equivalent is on the progress monitoring committee.
But is someone outside the RCMP looking at, as you just pointed out, that kind of training, for example, to make sure that it is actually adequate?
Yes, so in that review, so we call it the Lansdowne review, so we went outside and hired a third party called Lansdowne, who employed outside retired police officers outside the RCMP to do that review, and we have that review now, and we're implementing the recommendations within that review. So there was a comprehensive review of specifically our critical incident command, which would be the initial response and then the emergency response team as well.
Just before I let you go, one other question about the MCC. The report also suggested that the RCMP should hire an expert to review training for the supervisors, but publish and document on your website how you go about hiring people and promoting officers, something like you were talking about earlier in the conversation today about diversity and so on. But how do you hire and promote those officers to disrupt what they call, quote, an unhealthy aspect of the RCMP's management culture? Have you done those things?
So those, I believe, have a diary date to be public by September 30th, both those initiatives. I haven't seen the actual details. I know they're right on track to have it published on the website by September 30th, both of those recommendations.
Are you now willing to say that you'll accept all the recommendations of the Mass Casualty Commission?
I think it's important that the word is that we will address each one of those recommendations. Some of those recommendations belong obviously to the provincial government, some belong to the federal government, some are more directed to the RCMP. So I think it's fair to say we will address each one of those. It may take significant investment, financial investment or otherwise. So it might be a little premature just yet to say how exactly we will address each one of those, because again, there's partners involved here, both at the provincial and federal level.
And to come back to the apology for African Nova Scotians, do you have a timeline on that?
So the apology we're aiming for early of 2024. Our public consultations will continue until the end of November. Our next one is in Hammonds Plain, September 28th. So I hope your viewers take the opportunity to join us in Hammonds Plains. We're following that by October 4th in Truro. It's really important to me to have that engagement to inform what that apology looks like. So early 2024 would be my expectation to issue the apology and then the subsequent action plan.
We may talk again then. Thank you for talking today.
Thank you.